Is there a question that you always wanted to ask me, or a question I wanted to ask you, that you always wanted to know that you never asked?
Ask you,
Yeah.
Dan Rather.
Right.
I think the question that I would have asked you is that we grew up in a similar fashion. We had working class dads, and we came from a working class culture. Did you ever think, I know that you had big expectations and a lot of ambition, that it would work out as well as it did?
Never. The fact of the matter is I didn't have big expectations. I had big hopes.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think it's fair to say big ambitions. No, I never dreamed. My dream for a very long time was to become a big byline reporter for the Houston Chronicle newspaper. Now I'll turn that question around. I know you. You have drive, and you had your dreams. But did you ever, in your wildest imagination, believe that it would result in becoming anchor of the NBC Nightly News and becoming one of the best-known journalists in the world?
No. I did have a lot of ambition, and sometimes my ambition outplayed what my skill set was. But I have a famous story. My father was a real working-class guy.
I remember. I met your father, Red.
Yeah, Red Brokaw. And he was turned out of his family in the third grade, but it was taken over by a Swedish homesteader who taught him how to do everything, and he had an extraordinary skill as a heavy equipment operator. I mean, if it was broken, he could fix it. If it would operate, he could run it. And so we had a pretty good working class life as a result of that. But he was always a guy who knew how just to get to me. And about a week before I began Nightly News, he called me and he said, I was watching you last night, and it was pretty good, but I heard things on other radio programs that you didn't have. And I said, Dad, I'm operating this. Yeah, but I think, Tom, you ought to look a little more at the working class. And so a week later, I began Nightly News, and 5 days before I began Nightly News, he died. But it was our last conversation. But it was very memorable to me because here I was at the peak of my career. My father, who had grown up in America in the worst possible economic and cultural conditions, and I thought that was the American story, that my father worked hard to give me what I wanted in life, an education and an opportunity to do things, and it paid off, and he still had that ability to kind of say, keep it in context, Tommy, keep it in context.